There is someone in your life right now, or perhaps more than one person, about whom the full truth has not yet become completely clear to you, and by the time this video ends, you will know exactly what signs to look for, exactly what your own intuition has been trying to tell you, and exactly how Gemini's unique way of perceiving the world is about to cut through every layer of confusion and show you what has been there all along. This is not about fear, and it is not about suspicion. It is about the kind of clarity that only arrives when you are genuinely ready for it, when your inner self has decided that partial information is no longer acceptable and that the full truth, however it lands, is better than the comfortable illusion. If someone in your life has been showing you one face while keeping another hidden, if a dynamic you have been part of has felt slightly off in ways you could not quite articulate, if your gut has been saying something that your heart has been trying to quiet, then this video is for you, and these 11 signs will make everything clear. Sign 1. The first sign that Gemini is about to see the truth about someone is a change in how that person's words sound when you replay them later. In the moment, in real time, in the immediacy of the conversation, everything may seem perfectly fine. The words make sense. The explanation is plausible. The story holds together on the surface. But later, when you are alone and the immediate social energy of the exchange has settled, when you have the space to hear what was said without the person's presence influencing your response to it, something sounds different. Something does not quite add up the same way. There is a note in the replay that was not as audible in the live moment, a subtle inconsistency or a quality of evasion that your memory is now catching in a way your real-time mind did not. This retroactive noticing is one of the earliest and most important signs that Gemini's perception is beginning to cut through the surface of a situation. Your mind, which is genuinely one of the fastest and most comprehensive in the zodiac, is doing what it always does: processing, comparing, cataloging, cross-referencing. It is laying the words you have been hearing against the patterns of what you have observed and what you know, and it is finding that certain things do not match. The mismatch might be small. It might not yet be enough to draw a firm conclusion, but it is there. And the fact that it is appearing now, in these retroactive replays, means the process of seeing clearly has already begun. Pay attention to these moments of retroactive noticing. Do not dismiss them as overthinking or as unfair suspicion. Your intelligence is not a weapon to be turned against your relationships, but it is also not something to be suppressed in the interest of maintaining a comfortable surface. You have a mind that notices things. That is a gift. Right now, it is noticing something. Let it notice. Give it the space and the quiet to do its work, and begin paying closer attention to the specific nature of what is not quite adding up. The truth about someone is always composed of many small pieces, and this retroactive noticing is how the first pieces begin to surface. Sign 2. The second sign that Gemini is about to see the truth about someone is a very specific kind of fatigue that settles in after spending time with a particular person. A tiredness that is different from ordinary social tiredness, different from the normal winding down that happens after a full and engaged conversation. This is a fatigue that feels more like having been working very hard at something, like having been under a kind of low-level strain the entire time without quite being aware of it until it lifts when you separate. This particular quality of fatigue is your system reporting on the energetic reality of the interaction, even when the conscious mind has not yet fully processed what was happening. Your nervous system, your body, your emotional field, all of these take in far more information than your conscious mind can process in real time. They register things before you have words for them. And when they register that something in an interaction is requiring significant effort, the effort of managing conflicting signals, of trying to reconcile what is being said with what is being felt, of staying present in a dynamic that is subtly not what it presents itself as, they use up resources. And when the interaction ends, the depletion of those resources is felt as fatigue. Notice who in your life consistently leaves you feeling this particular kind of tired. Not the good tired of a deep and honest conversation, not the pleasant weariness of too much laughter, but the strained tired of a dynamic that requires something of you that you cannot quite name. That person and that dynamic is where your clarity is currently being sought. Your body has been aware of something your mind is still working toward. The fatigue is the body's way of pointing. Follow the point. Begin to ask yourself honestly what it is about that interaction that costs so much. The answer to that question will be one of the most important pieces of clarity you will arrive at during this period. If what you're hearing feels accurate, imagine what could happen if you applied this energy intentionally for 21 consecutive days. That's exactly what the 21-day program in the pinned comment is built for. Daily guidance, focused direction, and real momentum. If you're tired of staying in the same cycle, this is your structure. Sign 3. The third sign is one that arrives without noise, without drama, without any kind of announcement. It is simply a moment when you say something true about yourself, something genuine and unguarded, and you watch for the other person's response. Not what they say necessarily, but how they receive it. Whether their eyes stay present or move slightly away. Whether the energy of their attention shifts. Whether what they offer back feels like genuine engagement with what you shared or a pivot to something else, a redirect, a reframe that subtly moves the focus away from what you just revealed. Gemini is a sign of communication, and at a felt level, the difference between someone who is genuinely listening and someone who is waiting for you to finish so that they can redirect the conversation. You know what it feels like when someone receives what you have shared with real curiosity and care. And perhaps more clearly than you have been allowing yourself to acknowledge, when someone's response to what you share reveals that they are not as present with you as they appear to be. This sign is subtle, but it is reliable. A person who is showing you a false version of themselves will often be less equipped to respond genuinely to your authentic self. There is a kind of relational misalignment that occurs when one person is being real and the other is performing. The two registers do not fully meet, and the meeting that does not fully happen leaves a very specific kind of residue. You have felt that residue. You have had moments with this person where you offered something genuine and what came back felt slightly off. Not wrong exactly, not mean or dismissive, but not quite right either. Not quite landing in the place where your words were meant to land. Pay attention to that gap. That gap is information. Sign 4. The fourth sign that Gemini is approaching a moment of truth about someone is a growing inconsistency between who this person presents themselves to be in different contexts. A version of themselves with you that does not quite match the version visible in other situations, and a gap between those versions that is becoming harder to bridge with charitable explanation. You are beginning to notice that the person you encounter in private does not always align with the person others seem to encounter, or that the values they express to you are not reflected in the choices you observe them making, or that their account of themselves and their life contains small but accumulating details that, when laid side by side, create a picture that is not fully coherent. For Gemini, this kind of inconsistency is particularly significant because of your exceptional capacity for pattern recognition. You absorb information constantly, not always consciously but continuously. Your mind keeps records of things that were said in passing, of small details that seemed unimportant at the time, of moments that raised a question that you quickly moved past. And as these records accumulate, as the small details begin to outnumber the charitable explanations, a pattern begins to emerge. You have been in the early stages of seeing this pattern. What is approaching now is the moment when the pattern becomes undeniable, when there are simply too many pieces pointing in the same direction for any explanation other than the true one. When this moment arrives, and it is approaching, it is genuinely approaching, allow yourself to see the pattern clearly without immediately trying to find the alternative explanation that preserves your existing picture of this person. Not because the alternative explanation is always wrong, not because suspicion is always warranted, but because the clear-eyed seeing of what is actually there, before any filtering, before any softening, before any emotional accommodation of the possibility that you might be wrong, is where the truth lives. See it first, clearly, then decide from a place of genuine clarity what to do with what you see. Sign 5. The fifth sign that Gemini is about to see the truth about someone is a recurring sense in quiet moments that something important has been kept from you. Not a dramatic secret necessarily, not something that necessarily has the weight of betrayal, but something relevant, something that changes the picture if you knew it, something that this person has consistently managed to keep just out of your direct view. This sense may not have specific content attached to it yet. It may be more feeling than thought. A nagging sense of incompleteness, of having been shown a curated version of a story rather than the whole of it. Trust this sense. For Gemini especially, whose capacity to see many dimensions of a situation simultaneously makes deliberate omission an unusually difficult thing to maintain indefinitely, this nagging sense of the withheld is often quite accurate. You have been receiving enough information to sense the shape of what is not being said, even without being able to see it directly. The outline of the hidden thing is becoming visible in the negative space of what has been shared. And the fact that this sense is persisting, returning, refusing to be quieted by reassurance or distraction, means that your inner self is trying to ensure you do not look away before you have seen what needs to be seen. You do not yet need to act on this sense. You do not need to confront or accuse or make decisions while the picture is still forming. What you need to do is continue allowing the awareness to sharpen, continue paying attention with an open but honest eye, and continue making space for the full picture to become visible. The sense of the withheld is not paranoia. It is not the product of an overactive imagination. It is the product of an unusually perceptive mind doing what it does best, gathering the signal from beneath the noise and preparing to present it to you when the full picture is ready. Sign 6. The sixth sign that Gemini is about to see the truth about someone is that the ways in which this person flatters you have begun to feel less satisfying. Even when the flattery itself is pleasant on the surface, even when the words are kind, something underneath them has begun to feel hollow. It is as if you have started to develop an instinct for the difference between appreciation that comes from genuinely seeing you and appreciation that is a tool, one that has been strategically applied in order to manage how you feel toward the person offering it. Flattery as a tool is one of the most common ways that people who are not being fully honest with others manage those relationships. It keeps the other person feeling warm, keeps them feeling valued, keeps them less likely to look too closely at the things they might otherwise question. And it works for a while because the desire to be seen and appreciated is one of the most fundamental human needs. But when the flattery is not backed by genuine knowing, when it is being offered by someone who is performing rather than being, eventually the genuinely perceptive person begins to feel the difference. The praise starts to ring slightly false, not wrong in its content necessarily, but empty in its quality, like a gift-wrapped box with nothing inside. You have been feeling this, perhaps without naming it, perhaps without allowing yourself to follow the feeling to its logical conclusion, but you have been noticing that the warmth you receive from this particular person has a different quality than warmth that truly fills you up. This is not ingratitude. This is discernment. And it is one of the clearest signs that your vision is sharpening toward the truth of who this person actually is and what role they have actually been playing in your life. Some people watch, others transform. If you want to be in the second group, the 21-day guide in the pinned comment gives you a clear step-by-step process aligned with your sign. This isn't about waiting, it's about moving. Sign 7. The seventh sign is something that happens in the moments of actual vulnerability, yours specifically, when you let your guard down enough to share something that is genuinely difficult for you, something that is not curated or polished, something that reveals an area of real uncertainty or real pain. In those moments, the response you receive from this person tells you more about who they are than almost anything else you have observed. And lately, the response you have been receiving in those moments has felt insufficient. Not cruel, not dismissive in an obvious way, but insufficient. Not meeting the vulnerability where it lives. Not offering what genuine care and genuine attention would naturally offer in that moment. This insufficiency in moments of vulnerability is one of the most important signs that a person is not being fully present with you, or fully honest about the nature of the connection. Because the test of a genuine relationship, more than almost anything else, is how the other person shows up when you need them to actually show up. When the pleasant surface conversation is set aside and what is present is something real and difficult and in need of genuine support. In those moments, a person who is performing a relationship will often reveal by the quality of their presence that the performance has limits. The limits show up precisely when the situation calls for something beyond what a performance can provide. You have been in those moments. You have felt those limits. And the feeling of being insufficiently met in your vulnerability is not something to explain away or minimize. It is a signal of fundamental importance, one that, considered alongside the other signs you have been collecting, contributes to a picture that is becoming clearer with each passing week. Let this signal register. Let it take its place in the larger pattern. And then, when the full picture is visible, respond from a place of your own honest and self-respecting truth. Sign 8. The eighth sign that Gemini is about to see the truth about someone involves the friends and trusted people around you, specifically a growing sense that the people who know you best and care about you most have been attempting, in their careful and loving way, to say something to you about this person or this dynamic. Not necessarily directly, not necessarily in explicit terms, but in the concerned questions they sometimes ask, in the way certain conversations shift when this person's name comes up, in the quality of listening they offer when you speak about this person, a kind of listening that contains more than just interest, that contains something like worry. You have perhaps been managing this information by not fully receiving it, by hearing the concern in a general way while not letting it land specifically. This is natural and it is understandable. When we are invested in a relationship or a connection, the last thing we want is for the people around us to confirm our quiet doubts. But the people who know you well, who have seen you in many different seasons and many different relationships and many different versions of yourself, have access to a perspective that you cannot have from inside the dynamic. They can see the whole of how it looks from outside. They can see patterns that your closeness to the situation makes difficult to see from within it. Their concern, offered with love, is worth receiving with more openness than you may have allowed it so far. This does not mean acting on their concern without your own independent clarity, but it does mean allowing it to be part of the picture rather than filtering it out in order to protect a version of the situation that is becoming less and less tenable. The people who love you are trying to help you see something. They are showing you a sign. And that sign is part of the larger truth that is very close now to full visibility. Sign 9. The ninth sign that Gemini is approaching the truth about someone is a particular change in the way your future looks when this person is included in it. When you were more invested in the picture you had of them, when the relationship felt more solid and certain, imagining them in your future felt natural. They fit into the forward-moving scenes of your life in a way that seemed right. But lately, when you try to picture the longer arc, a year from now, 2 years from now, and you try to place them in that picture, something feels strained. The image does not come naturally anymore. It requires a kind of forcing that it did not used to require. This is your imagination doing something very honest and very important. The forward-seeing part of your mind is refusing to construct a confident future with someone about whom your deeper self has unresolved doubts. It is not willing to invest the energy of future imagining in a direction that does not have a solid foundation of truth beneath it. And so the forward pictures stall, or they come out strangely, or they feel uncomfortable in a way you cannot fully articulate. That discomfort is your honest self protecting your future. It is refusing to build on ground that is not yet known to be solid. The question this sign is asking is worth sitting with. When you imagine a future that is genuinely good, one that feels deeply right, deeply aligned, deeply nourishing, is this person in it naturally? Not forced in, not included out of obligation or habit or a desire to make the math work, but genuinely, naturally, comfortably present. The answer your gut gives to that question before your mind has had time to negotiate with it is one of the most important pieces of information you have access to right now. Sign 10. The 10th sign that Gemini is about to see the truth about someone is an increasing awareness of what they consistently avoid, not in an obvious way, not in a way that is easy to call out directly, but in the persistent, patterned way that certain topics are always managed around, that certain direct questions are always met with slight redirection, that certain parts of their life always remain opaque despite numerous opportunities for them to become more visible. This consistent avoidance is one of the most telling behaviors a person can exhibit, because it is almost impossible to sustain indefinitely without eventually becoming visible to a perceptive observer. And you are beginning to observe it. The specific nature of what is being avoided matters enormously. It tells you where the truth is being kept. If the avoidance is always around a specific person in their life, the truth likely involves that person. If it is always around a specific time period, the truth involves something from that period. If it is around a specific kind of question about intentions, about commitments, about values, the truth lives in the territory of those questions. You do not have to go looking for these patterns aggressively. Simply pay attention to what never quite gets answered, what always gets slightly redirected, what is never fully illuminated despite the many opportunities it has had to be. That is where the real picture lives. And it is becoming visible. Sign 11. The 11th and final sign that Gemini is about to see the truth about someone is the most important one. And it is this: you already know. Not all of it, not in complete and unambiguous detail, but at some level, beneath the part of you that is still negotiating, still extending the benefit of the doubt, still hoping that the charitable interpretation will prove to be the right one. At some level you already know. You have known for longer than you have been willing to say out loud. And the reason this video is resonating with you, the reason these 11 signs have been landing with the weight of recognition rather than the lightness of irrelevance, is that part of you that already knows, nodding along, grateful to finally be heard. This is the sign that matters most because it points to the most important action available to you right now, which is to stop overriding your own knowing. To stop explaining it away, talking yourself out of it, finding the version of events that makes the knowing feel unnecessary or overwrought. Your knowing is not overwrought. Your knowing is your most reliable compass. And for Gemini, who carries one of the sharpest and most sophisticated minds in the entire zodiac, the same mind that can hold multiple perspectives simultaneously, that can build a case for anything from any direction, that knowing cuts through all of the competing interpretations to what is simply and clearly true. You have two options after this video: close it and hope things shift, or decide that the next 21 days will be different. If you choose the second, the structured 21-day transformation aligned with your sign is waiting in the pinned comment. The energy is already moving, the only question is whether you are. Gemini, the clarity that is approaching you right now is not something to fear. Seeing the truth about someone, even a difficult truth, even a truth that will require you to make changes or have conversations you would rather not have, or let go of something you have been holding close, is an act of profound self-respect. You deserve to live in a world that is real. You deserve relationships that are built on genuine ground, rather than on careful performance. You deserve to be known by people who are willing to be known in return. The truth that is approaching is not your enemy. It is the beginning of something better, something more honest, more aligned, and far more worthy of the remarkable, perceptive, genuinely extraordinary person that you are.